Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Let's all say Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Pravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyaresha Tarine Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhu? Oh, here we go. We're back. Okay, since we only got a few people here to start, why don't we ask you if you remember anything from yesterday? Yesterday's lesson was called Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya. Thank you. All the way from prophecies that Prabhupada fulfilled to 1975 when Prabhupada defined him under Acharya. Any Puranic Gaudiya, as recently as Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then we looked at the stage setting that Lord Chaitanya did for the world history so that his Senapati Bhakta would come to just the right place at just the right time, speaking to just the right people. Not to say that it was easy. Prabhupada spent 10 months on his own in cold New York. I remember that winter, 65 going into 66. It was wicked. It was brutal because I was born in New York on the Lower East Side, and I grew up in Connecticut, just 35 miles from Manhattan. Yeah, with the winds, now we're losing it again. Okay. Okay, let's just start. In the Sambandha lessons, we deepened our understanding of Srila Prabhupada's relationship with us as our founder Acharya. Now, in the Abhideya phase of our journey, we will explore how each of us can develop that relationship by deepening our commitment to Srila Prabhupada's mission. In this lesson, we'll trace his mission's origin and development in India before it manifested in the West. So how many of you have read A Lifetime in Preparation? Okay, so it roughly parallels that first volume of the Lilamrita. Prabhupada in India from his birth, 1896, all the way up to 1965. So we're not going to start with Prabhupada's birth. We're focusing on the mission. So that's what we're going to do. From the moment he met his Guru Maharaj in Calcutta in 1922 to the day he stepped on the Jaladuta, Friday the 13th, August 1965, the luckiest day in the history of the world. Okay, so there's a significant image of Prabhupada to start the lesson. It's very mission-focused. This is what Prabhupada was doing just before he came to the West. He was all alone in Radha Damodar Temple. 1960 roughly to 1965, begging for the mercy of Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to do his mission. Now, if Prabhupada was all alone there, how do we have this photo? I can't hear you. Yeah, it was after. That's how we have the photo, because it wasn't taken in 1962. It was actually taken in 1972, when Prabhupada was back in Vrindavan giving nectar devotion lectures. Okay. Giving nectar of devotion lectures in the fall of 72, October, November, and a little bit December, and later on he continued those lectures in Mumbai and Bombay. Okay. 10 years before this photo was taken in 1972, Srila Prabhupada sat alone in his quarters, translating Srimad Bhagavatam and begging Srila Rupa Goswami for empowerment to execute Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's order to preach Krishna consciousness in the West. He had received the seed of that order during his first meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in what year? 72, this is the photo. So how many years before this photo did he get the order? 1922. So how many years? 50. 22 and 50 is 72. Okay. So this is another history lesson. His mission seed. Does anybody know the story of how Prabhupada came to meet his Guru Maharaj? Naveen can tell us. You have the mic?
Hare Krishna. Actually, Prabhupada, before meeting his spiritual master, he was not having good impression on the sadhus and the gurus, because he has seen so many sadhus from his childhood.
Okay, at least it's coming back quick. Why are we dropping it? It's a hardware issue? Okay. Yeah, Prabhupada was growing up in his home with his father, and his father was very generous, and so he would invite these people dressed as sadhus for prasad. But they were just, street people dressed as sadhus, begging japatis, and they weren't imparting transcendental knowledge as an exchange. They were just begging japatis, Prabhupada said, and then they'd go outside and light up a bidi. So Prabhupada thought, what's the use of these Kali Yuga sadhus? They're not sadhus at all, they're just beggars. And then what happened?
Yes. Then one day his friend came and he told about the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and he mentioned the same thing. Oh, I have seen so many sadhus, I don't want to come. Then his friend dragged him, please come, you have to come. Then he came and he saw Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, and the first...
Now we're getting into it. Okay,
yeah.
So let's keep the mic, and let's see here. Yeah, so read that.
While the two young men were sitting and rising and preparing to sit, Before a preliminary formalities of conversation had begun, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta immediately said them, "You are educated young men, why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message throughout the whole world?"
That was the seed, actually, right there. Of course, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was saying that to all young Indian men who looked half-educated. He was recruiting people for his mission. And he was pretty successful in the 1920s. So he was once, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was once visited by the Indian nationalist militant Subhas Chandra Bose, whom Prabhupada went to school with, Scottish Churches College, University of Calcutta. And Subhas Bose was complaining to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, "You know, I'm trying to recruit an Indian national army to get the British out of India, but you're taking all these young men. So please be considerate of my cause." So what did Srila Bhaktisiddhanta reply, do you know, to Subhas Bose? You know what he said?
I can speculate, but I
No, don't speculate. Prabhupada told us. Prabhupada told us, Guru Maharaj said to Subhas Bose, "Oh, the men I'm getting, they're skinny men, Brahmin types. So don't put your glance upon them. Don't worry, you're not losing out. You need like Sikhs and Gorkhas, right?" So that kind of pacified Subhas Bose. But really, Bhaktisiddhanta would just said that to avoid Bose, because he knew Bose was a rabid, militant guy. But Prabhupada told us, I was a devotee of Gandhi. I was following Gandhi. I was dressed in khadi. I had refused my diploma from the university. So I was boycotting everything British, what Gandhi said to do. So when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said to them, even before they'd risen from obeisances, "Why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya's message all over the world?" What did Srila Bhaktisiddhanta reply? Do you know? You know what he replied? Okay, anybody know? Okay, so Bhaktisiddhanta said, "Oh no, Krishna consciousness is much more important than any politics. This is the urgent emergency need of every living being." So Prabhupada was struck with wonder because he never heard of an answer to him, to his Gandhi, philosophy. So immediately when Prabhupada heard that, he thought, wow, well, let's see what Prabhupada thought. Read.
Srila Prabhupada, I was from a Vaishnava family, so I could appreciate what he was preaching. Of course, he was speaking to everyone, but he found something in me. I was so much struck with wonder. I could understand here is the proper person who can give a real religious idea.
So when they left the meeting, the darshan with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Prabhupada's friend Narendranath Mullik, his friend from childhood, said, "So what did you think, Abai?" Because the reason Narendranath Mullik Prabhupada said, "Drag me to the meeting," is because Prabhupada said, "I was a leader among my friends." And they had all met Bhaktisiddhanta and they were very impressed. But they were reserving judgment until I gave my opinion. So Prabhupada said to Naren, "Oh, he's wonderful. Now I can see Lord Chaitanya's messages in the right hands. He can give a real religious idea." So Prabhupada told us later, he said, "I accepted him as my spiritual master immediately. Not officially, but in my heart." So this is 1922. When did Prabhupada officially take Diksha? Do you know? 33. 11 years later, it was formalized. But the real initiation takes place in the heart when there's a transformation. So immediately, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta answered Prabhupada in a way that he never heard, he was amazed. Prabhupada's allegiance flew from Gandhi right to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. I accepted him immediately. Now Not officially, but in my heart. It's still mysterious why it's doing that. Okay, at least it's coming back quick. Now, this was 1922. Prabhupada was already a married man. He had a wife and he had a daughter. But Prabhupada, he wished he could have just joined the mission immediately, but he couldn't. Prabhupada told us, if I did, it would have been an injustice, because he can't just abandon his young family. But immediately, he began thinking of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and his mission. In 1923, the next year, Srila Prabhupada left his office manager job with a leading pharmaceutical company. Remember yesterday too, we realized that it's connected to how I handle the remote too. Maybe I'm doing it. I'll try to be mindful of that. It's there? Okay. So the next year, in 23, Prabhupada left Calcutta. He went to Allahabad because he had a job at his family friend's pharmaceutical company, Bengal Chemical, Dr. Kartik Chandra Bose, and Prabhupada was so good at the Bengal Chemical. He was the leading salesperson in the whole place. So he was so good, he thought, actually, I could have my own business. No, that wasn't me. No, think. Wait a minute. Okay. I could have my own business. So he moves his family from Calcutta to Prayag, Allahabad, and he starts Prayag Pharmacy, Day's Pharmacy. The seed of Srila Prabhupada's mission went with him. Quote, this is from the Lilamrita. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was often traveling, and Abai was busy with his family and business. So to arrange another meeting was not possible. Yet from their very first encounter, Abai had considered Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati his spiritual master, and Abai began thinking of him always. I have met such a nice saintly person. Whenever possible, Abai would seek out Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples, the members of the Gaudiya Math, and they would also seek out Abai. I'll just hold it there for a minute. Okay. I'm communicating with the okay, good. Well, we thought that yesterday, but let's see if I. No, I'm not. I'm conscious of how I handle this, so I don't. That doesn't make sense either, right? I mean, it's a hardware issue. Okay, so Prabhupada's in Allahabad, and he told us a couple of things. He would always tell us about his. Yeah, I'm not even holding it. So Prabhupada told us a couple of things. Prabhupada would always speak about the history of the Gaudiya Math and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta at the occasion of the appearance and disappearance days of his Guru Maharaj. There was about 10 or 11 lectures, and every time he would give the history. So he said one day in 1928, so that's 5 years after he moved from Calcutta, he was in his pharmacy, and in walks two Gaudiya Math sannyasis. And Prabhupada's so glad to see them. And one of them said, Abai Babu, we hear you're a very nice Vaishnav, and you're a very good businessman and organizer. Could you help us organize a new branch of the Gaudiya Math here in Allahabad? So Prabhupada said, yes, of course, I must help you. So he did, and he gave them contacts for a lot of important people in Allahabad, and over the course of a few years, he was developing a center. Then in 1932, Prabhupada said he was still in Prayag, Allahabad, and he heard about a big yatra that was going on in Braj Mandal that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was leading a huge party of devotees all over Brajmandal, because by then, by the 1930s, he had thousands and thousands of disciples. And they had a big new headquarters in Bug Bazaar, Calcutta. They had moved from Altadunga to Bug Bazaar. So Prabhupada thought, I'm really busy with the business, but I've got to get away and see Guru Maharaj. So he sneaks away for 1 or 2 days from the business, and he catches up with the yatra in a town called Kosi in Brajmandal. And just as he arrived, Sridhar Maharaj is announcing, tonight Guru Maharaj is lecturing for the last night. This is the last night he'll be with us on the yatra. So he's giving us a choice. We can either stay here in Kosi and hear him speak, or we can go to this nearby town where there's a big Sheshashayi Vishnu temple, one of these big reclining Vishnu deities. So practically everybody went to see the Vishnu deity. But Prabhupada told us, he thought, what will I see at this Sheshashayi? Let me stay and hear Guru Maharaj. So he turned out to be the only householder who stayed with a few brahmacharis and sannyasis. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta noticed that Abhay Charan Dey liked to hear him. Prabhupada told us, he was speaking in a very high philosophical way. Sometimes I could understand him, sometimes I could not. But I loved to hear him speak. And because I was serious about hearing, now I'm serious about speaking. So that was in 32, October, November, in Kosi. And then, the next year, 33, I think it was Atulananda Brahmachari, the main organizer in Allahabad, that Prabhupada was helping to get a temple going there, said, Abhay Babu, Guru Maharaj, he's coming to Allahabad in November, so I would like to recommend you for initiation. And so Prabhupada thought, yeah, let's do it, you know, so he was really eager. So Atulananda recommended Abhay Charan, and let's see. So here's what happened. All right, Mataji, you want to?
With folded palms, Abhay looked up humbly at his spiritual master. He and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta were now face to face, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta recognized him and was visibly pleased to see him. He already knew him. Yes, he said, exchanging look with Abhay. He likes to hear. He does not go away. I have marked him. I will accept him as my disciple. Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita, Volume 1, How Shall I Serve You?
I have marked him. So right from the beginning, in 22, Prabhupada said that Guru Maharaj saw something in me, and now at initiation, he said, I have marked him, how he likes to hear. And what became his Diksha name? Abhay Charanarvinda. Abhay Charan became Abhay Charanarvinda, one who was fearless at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So that was 1933. And 2 years later, in 1935, Srila Prabhupada received 3 major blessings from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. The first 2 blessings were very sweet, and the third one was very grave. So we jump now to 35. Now what happened in 1934, Srila Prabhupada saw that really the business wasn't really growing much in Allahabad. So he and a brother decided to go to Bombay and try to drum up some business and consider also manufacturing pharmaceuticals. Because what happened in Prayag was Prabhupada was extending a lot of credit to his customers, to his wholesale customers, but they weren't paying their bills. So Prabhupada himself was falling behind on his bills because he was buying everything from the source from Kartik Chandra Bose, who had employed him before in Calcutta. So Prabhupada told Dr. Bose, you know, I can't pay you because I'm not getting paid. So Dr. Bose came to Prayag to look at the books, Abhai's books, and he saw that it was true. It wasn't his fault that he couldn't pay his bills, but he wasn't getting any money. So Dr. Bose said, you know, Abhai, the only way you're going to get out of this enormous debt is if I assume the debt, I take over your business. And you won't have any business if I take over your business, but at least you won't be in debt. So Prabhupada agreed, and he gave the business over to Dr. Bose, and then he started something small, just something to keep going in Allahabad, to keep his family, his growing family going, while he went to the big city, Bombay, to explore a bigger opportunity. So that's what he did in 1934. So who should Prabhupada meet in Bombay in 1934? Two more Gaudiya Math sannyasis, Bhakti Saranga Maharaj and Srila Maharaj. And they said, oh, Abhai Charanaravinda, you're a good organizer, and we're having a hard time getting a Gaudiya Math branch going here in Bombay. So would you help us start a branch in Bombay? Because they knew he had helped start the branch in Allahabad. So Prabhupada, of course, I'll help you. So he did, and by 1935 Vyasa Puja time, which is in February for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, they had a big launch of the Bombay branch of the Gaudiya mission, and Abhai Charanaravinda was selected by Bhakti Saranga, who was the head of the mutt, to give the keynote address for the Vyasa Puja day. So Prabhupada, he gave the address, the Vyasa Puja speech, which was also a kind of launch speech for the mutt, and it was an amazing speech. It was called the Universal Teacher. It was in English because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta liked his disciples to preach in English and speak in English, so he did. And then he also recited a famous poem. Adore, adore ye that holy day, blessed in heaven, sweeter than May, when he appeared at Puri, that holy place, my Lord and Master, his divine grace. So I was really pleased when I came across an audio of Prabhupada reciting the stanza, the quatrain, that pleased Srila Bhaktisiddhanta the most in the poem. And here's the stanza.
Absolutely sentient thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity thou hast moved.
Sometimes you see it removed. Thou hast removed. Why? You know why? Because this poem was found years later in one of the Harmonist magazines, the English language journal of the Gaudiya mission. Guru Das found it in England in the it was in the Royal Asiatic Society in London. He found the poem in an old harmonist, and he brought it to Prabhupada when they were launching the London Yatra in '69. So Prabhupada was amazed. He said, oh, I thought this was lost. So he read his poem, and then he came to this stanza that pleased his Guru Maharaj the most, and he edited the poem. So Prabhupada himself is a source of editorial changes. And he changed the last word in the stanza from moved, which is a kind of poetic way of saying removed. But removed is a little more, as the French say, le mot juste, the more appropriate, apt word, right? So, because 34 years on, from 1935 to '69, when Guru Das brought him the poem, Prabhupada's English had improved. So he made a little tweak there on his own poem. So that poem was so impressive to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Here's what it says in the Lilamrita. Quote, somehow in this simple couplet, Abai had captured the essence of his spiritual master's preaching against the Mayavadis, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta took it as an indication of how well Abai knew the mind of his Gurudev. Abai was delighted when he heard that the couplet was pleasing to his spiritual master. So it was not only pleasing, but Srila Bhaktisiddhanta used to show the poem to guests. Just see how my disciple knows the essence of my mission, my mind, my heart. And then here's the blessing, the sweet blessing he gave.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta instructed the editor of The Harmonist, whatever he writes, publish it. Srila Prabhupada.
That's huge. You don't have to read the reference.
Yeah.
That's huge. Can you imagine? Immediately, everybody knows that Abhay Charan Aravinda is a very confidential disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Whatever he writes, publish it. It's like carte blanche, you know? Just, he wants everyone to know what Abhay Charan Aravinda is thinking and writing. So that's a very sweet blessing. In February 1935, here's the second sweet blessing. In July, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is touring his Gaudiya Mats, and he wants to see how that new Bombay Center is doing. So he comes to the Bombay Center, he sees that there's very good preaching going on, it's very clean, a lot of books are being distributed, there's many, many guests. So he compliments Bhakti Saranga Maharaj about how it's doing. So Bhakti Saranga Maharaj says this. Let's want to pass.
Bhakti Saranga Maharaj admitted that much of the work was due to Abhay Babu, who had collected funds and established the new center. Why is Abhay living separately? Bhakti Saranga asked. He should be president of this Bombay Center.
It's Abhay Babu who is singing all these sweet bhajans, and he's giving all these great classes, and everybody loves him. He should be the president here. What did Bhaktisiddhanta reply?
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati replied, "It is better that he is living outside your company. He will do, when the time comes, he will do everything himself. You don't have to recommend him."
This reads, it's very prophetic actually. It's very prophetic given what happened to the Gaudiya mission. Now Prabhupada, he heard that Bhaktisiddhanta said this about him, and it was a little mystifying. Prabhupada told us later this. So after hearing that he said, "It is better that he is living a little away from your mutt, and when time will arise, he will do everything. He hasn't got to be advised." But I could not understand, and then Prabhupada laughs, why he said like that. That means he was so kind that he expected that I shall do something. That was my asset, his blessing. And I was thinking that this mission, it must be done very nicely. Although I was not capable to do anything, I was thinking like that. So desire was there, and blessing was there. Yes, there was no question of my qualification. So, yeah, and it was July 1935. It's getting close to the end of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's manifest pastimes. So as it gets closer, you see now this image in the vase. This is reflecting now the final blessing in 1935, final major blessing, when again it's Brajmandal Parikrama, and Abhay Charan Aravinda, he's there with his Guru Maharaj, and they're at Radha Kund, and Prabhupada's got his little son with him. I think it's Mathura Mohan. And Bhaktisiddhanta is very concerned You see the concern on his face. Because it's now November 35, it's only 14 months until his disappearance. And he's confiding in his disciple, Abhayacharya Aravinda. Prabhupada told us that Guru Maharaj, he would always want to confide something in me. And the godbrothers would criticize me for sitting too close to him. Prabhupada told us that he even said, sit next to me, on the same level. And the godbrothers would say, fools rush in, right? Where angels fear to tread. But Prabhupada said, fool I may have been, but what could I do? Guru Maharaj, he wanted to talk to me, intimate things. So here they are at Radhakund, and the brahmacharis and the sannyasis are behind them, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is really concerned. Okay, Subal Prabhu. Or no, Mataji, you can read. Let's let Mataji read first.
Deeply concerned, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said to Abai,
Agun Jwalbe.
There will be fire. One day, there would be fire in the Calcutta Gaudiya Math, and that fire of party interests would spread and destroy. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta then said directly to Abai,
Amar ichha chila kichu bai karana.
I had a desire to print some books. If you ever get money, print books.
Yeah, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was lamenting to his disciple Abhayacharya Aravinda. Ever since we moved from Altadanga Junction, that simple ashram we had, and now we've got this big palace in Bug Bazaar, all my leading preachers, they're becoming mad after the marble and the stone and the bricks. They're fighting over who's going to have the nicest rooms. They're losing their preaching spirit. They're becoming very materialistic. So he's confiding this to Abhayacharya Aravinda, because by then he could see what was coming. He could see the eventual fragmentation of the Gaudiya mission, but he could also see in the person of Abhayacharya Aravinda someone who could pick up the pieces of that mission someday and do something wonderful. So, okay, read that, Mataji.
Standing by Radhakund and beholding his spiritual master, Abai felt the words deeply enter his own life. If you ever get money, print books.
There's the seed of book distribution in ISKCON. If you ever get money, print books. So Prabhupada's formula, whatever funds came into ISKCON, half into printing books, more books, and half into building temples. That was the formula. And the books came first. If somebody wanted a loan to start building a temple, if they hadn't paid their book fund debt, they had to pay the book fund debt first before the BBT would loan them the money. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's grave blessing for Srila Prabhupada occurred during the Braj Mandal Parikram that November. Foreseeing the breakup of the Gaudiya mission, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave Srila Prabhupada some grave advice just 14 months before his own demise. Blessed by his Guru Maharaj, the founder Acharya of the Gaudiya Math, Srila Prabhupada's desire to better serve his master's mission later moved him to write a letter to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So he's still struggling to try to launch a big business in Bombay. But really, ever since his initiation especially, and his blessings from his Guru Maharaj, he's really on fire with the mission. So here he is, writing a letter to his Guru Maharaj in December 1936. Now it's just weeks before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is about to pass away. He's already done a lot. He's already helped launch 2 maths. He's pleased his Guru Maharaj like anything with his speaking and his writing, but he's feeling inadequate. And Prabhupada only told us this from the letter. Okay, you want to? Subal Prabhu.
I am a householder. Sometimes I give monetary help, well, I cannot give you direct service. Is there any particular service I can do?
So, his sincerity is so much there, more than anybody else in the Gaudiya mission. Now, Prabhupada told us more words of what the reply was. So here's the reply.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur replied, quote, I am fully confident that you can explain in English our thoughts and arguments to the people. This will do much good to yourself as well as your audience. I have every hope that you can turn yourself into a very good English preacher if you serve the mission to inculcate the noble impressions of Lord Chaitanya's teachings in the people. Abhay at once recognized this to be the same instruction he had received at the first meeting in 1922. He took it as a confirmation. There was no doubt as to the purpose of his life.
This final exchange shows why Srila Prabhupada received the most mercy from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He was the most eager to fulfill his master's order to spread Krishna consciousness worldwide. In the next slide, we'll see how Srila Prabhupada responded to intense conflict, both within Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's fractured Gaudiya mission and without as World War II. So, as we know, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta passed away on New Year's Eve, 1936. Actually, at 5:30 a.m. It was actually technically January 1st. It was New Year's Day, 37. But because the Vaishnavas marked the day from the sunrise, it was still dark in January. So Prabhupada says the 31st December, he breathed his last. So immediately after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta passed away, fighting broke out of who was going to succeed Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Exactly the opposite of what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said. He said, so work conjointly. Our only desire, our only ambition is to be the dust at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa Raghunath. Form a GBC to supervise the mission. You don't replace a founder Acharya. You don't compete to try to be the next big person. You simply serve the mission and you work together. They didn't do that. They were, even before he passed away, there were at least 2 camps vying for, jockeying for position for a power struggle. And it was disgraceful. They took it to the courts. How mundane, right? There's a transcendental mission, and now they're fighting over who's going to own the assets of the Gaudiya mission. The properties, the presses. One printing press was sold just to cover somebody's court costs. It was disgraceful. Prabhupada, by the mercy of his Guru Maharaj, was aloof from the whole thing, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta recommended. It is better he is away from your mutt, your company. He will do everything himself. You don't have to recommend him. So Prabhupada finally gave up on Bombay in 1938, and he moved his whole family, he and his family, all had a reunion in Calcutta, and Prabhupada just started his own small pharmaceutical works, Abhay Charan Day and Sons, although the Sons were not very helpful. And he got a few rooms, a couple of buildings actually, in North Calcutta. And it was around that time that he was contacted by some old friends in the Gaudiya mission, Sridhar Maharaj, Bhakti Saranga Maharaj, and they also were aloof from all the legal fighting. And they asked Abhayacharya Aravinda if he could help them get some preaching base in Calcutta. So Prabhupada said, well, look, I have some extra rooms here. My family's in one place in the building, and I'm doing some writing, and I'm manufacturing pharmaceuticals in this other rooms. Why don't you come, and you can, for a nominal fee, just to maintain, the utilities, you can have a base here in Calcutta. And they said, great. So they came, and they used to have Bhagavat Katha. And Sridhar Maharaj, when he gave his memory of Prabhupada, he said, I noticed Abhay Babu, when we came to Calcutta in 1938, he wasn't very much interested anymore in his business. He was more interested in our Bhagavatam readings. That was what was inspiring to him. And then the next year, 1939, of course, it wasn't just the Gaudiya Math that was fighting. The whole world went to war. World War II broke out, Hitler rolling into these other countries. And Prabhupada that year, he started writing his introduction to Gita-upanishad. And he showed the draft to his sannyasi guard brothers, and they were so impressed that they gave him a name, they gave him a title, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. No longer just Abhay Babu, but Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. And then in 1944, as the war was carrying on, Srila Prabhupada, on the occasion of his Guru Maharaj's Vyasa Puja Day, Appearance Day, launched a magazine with the blessings of his god brothers, Back to Godhead. This is not that first issue. This is a later issue, October '58, when he had the masthead, the whole design for the front cover. The first issue, if you've seen them, they're just print on white paper for many issues. So, let's see here. In 1944, while working and living with his family in Calcutta, Srila Prabhupada started Back to Godhead magazine in English. This is the first manifestation of Prabhupada's mission for the mission, so to speak. We're going to do a lesson called Finding Our Mission in His Mission. This is the first manifestation. He started a magazine. Okay. Launched near the end of World War II, Srila Prabhupada's BTG offered the war-weary world spiritual solutions to material problems. After the war, with India's independence from Britain imminent, Srila Prabhupada thought of engaging India's hero, Mahatma Gandhi, in his mission. So Prabhupada's youthful hero, also his personal hero, Gandhi, everybody loved Gandhi by this time, because as soon as the war ended, the British realized we're losing the empire, because the Indians, soldiers, here's what happened. Subhash Bose, he was able to get an audience with Hitler, and he said, look, when you capture these Indian soldiers who are fighting for the British against you, don't just put them in a prison camp. Send them to me, because I'm fighting the British in India. I'm starting an Indian National Army, and we'll help you from that side, from the India side. So as soon as the British realized what was happening, they realized we're finished, because it was the Indian soldiers, the Sikhs and the Gurkhas, who were maintaining the empire all over the world, Africa and different places worldwide. So after the war, even though Hitler was defeated and Britain was on the winning side, they lost the empire. As the following interview excerpt shows, Srila Prabhupada intended to engage Gandhi in Lord Chaitanya's mission. Here's how it went. Prabhupada told an interviewer from a magazine called Trans India, this is in New York in 1976, he told the interviewer, quote, yes, I wanted to start this movement from India. I even requested Mahatma Gandhi that, Mahatmaji, you have got some respect all over the world, and you are known as a great student of Bhagavad Gita. Now you have got your Swaraj, your independence, the Britishers have gone away, let us preach Bhagavad Gita. My letter might have reached him or not reached him, but then he was killed. So Prabhupada actually wrote that letter before Gandhi was assassinated in January '48. Prabhupada wrote the letter in July '47, but Prabhupada thought probably it never even reached him, because his secretaries probably just read it and threw it away. After Gandhi was assassinated on the 30th of January 1948, Prabhupada wrote business and government leaders in India with his scheme to properly honor Gandhi's contribution to humanity. So he was hopeful, before Gandhi was killed, he was hopeful that he could team up with Gandhi, whom the whole world knew, and start a spiritual revolution. That was Prabhupada. Prabhupada never thought small, right? But then Gandhi was shot. But even with Gandhi's death, Prabhupada wrote Business and Government Leaders, and he was saying this. Okay. He wrote them with his scheme to properly honor Gandhi's contribution to humanity. He called the scheme, quote, the Gita Nagari, the village where the Bhagavad Gita is sung and lived. Here is an excerpt from an essay Prabhupada wrote called Conception of Gita Nagari, Part 1. I was actually the guy who found this essay at Gita Nagari Farm in Pennsylvania when we started to research Prabhupada's life for the Lilamrita. So I looked in this, some of Prabhupada's pre-USA India papers, and I was reading this essay, and Prabhupada's talking about a place called Gita Nagari where we could start a spiritual revolution that would change the face of world history. And so I brought it to our team and Satsuru Maharaj, and I said, look at this, folks. Prabhupada's talking about a place called Gita Nagari. And here we are in Gita Nagari. This sounds auspicious. And we're compiling Prabhupada's life story. So here's the scheme. Quote, the Gita Nagari will properly utilize the huge resources of Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Fund in a manner as will satisfy both Gandhi and the public. Gandhi's memory can be well preserved by his exemplary activities and not by simply constructing huge buildings or dead stone statues, Prabhupada wrote, where pigeons will simply pass stool. As we see the general tendency, Mahatma Gandhi was a saintly reformer, and his memorial fund may be utilized for the purpose of converting degraded persons into saintly persons, unquote. So Gita Nagari thus became the first face Prabhupada put on his mission. And then, predictably, when India's leaders ignored Prabhupada's proposals to fund a spiritual community based on Gandhi's inspirational book, Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada decided to revive Back to Godhead, where he began to further express his plan to rescue humanity by building spiritual communities based on the Gita's teachings. So this is Prabhupada. He's trying to figure out how to do the mission, how to do what his spiritual master asked him to do. And he was trying to start it in India. In the next lesson, we'll take a closer look, this is this afternoon, lesson 5, at Srila Prabhupada's Gita Nagari plan, triggered by the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi, and how he applied its phases years later in ISKCON. So a few years after Gandhi's demise, Prabhupada met the first students interested in his preaching. Okay. So Prabhupada was still doing business, although he was really getting disgusted with his family, because even though the children were growing up, they were not interested in helping him, either with the family business, or the pharmaceuticals, or in his mission, his spiritual business, his spiritual mission. Especially his wife. Whenever Prabhupada wanted to have home programs, she and the kids would just hide in some other room. She wanted no part of the mission. You know, she was a nice, pious lady, but she was not interested in Prabhupada's mission. So while on business in Jhansi in October 1952, Prabhupada was invited by a doctor to return to Jhansi to present his spiritual message to interested medical students at the local Ayurvedic college. So Prabhupada was invited by a doctor to do some business with him. The doctor would prescribe some pharmaceuticals for the remedy for the patients he was getting, and then Prabhupada would be right next to him in the table next to him and actually sell them the pharmaceuticals that the doctor prescribed. So at the end of this 2-week engagement, the doctor turned to Abai Babu and said, Babu, you know, I can see you're not just a pharmaceutical salesman, you're a preacher. Because when Prabhupada was selling him the pharmaceuticals, he was also preaching to them. He couldn't help himself, you know. This is the real medicine, you know, the Krishna consciousness, the holy names. So the doctor was quite impressed, and he said, why don't you come back to Jhansi sometime and try to interest the students at the local Ayurvedic medical college in your message, because they're into the Vedas, albeit from a medical point of view. I think you'd have some success. So Prabhupada took him up on that. He came back to Jhansi in October 52, and he met one of these medical students, Prabhakar Mishra, who ended up being his first disciple, Acharya Prabhakar. And Acharya Prabhakar, or Prabhakar Mishra at the time, he was living at, he knew somebody who owned a lot of land and buildings, who was an executor actually for an estate. So let me just read my notes here. With the help of a student who later would become his first disciple, Acharya Prabhakar, Prabhupada gained access to a landed estate, which he began to use as a base for his mission. So this estate overseer, executor, he could see that he liked saintly persons, and he said, Abai Babu, why don't you use these premises for your preaching, your teaching? He liked sadhus, so he just let him use it. And he even hinted that maybe he could deed the property as a gift to Abai Babu. But that didn't happen. With the estate executor's permission, Prabhupada transformed the property into, quote, the League of Devotees. League was a popular name. It was a Muslim league, this league, that league. So Prabhupada said the League of Devotees. And canvassed for his mission among the student community. Prabhupada took an ad out in the local paper for students to read, and here's how the ad read. Wanted candidates from any nationality to qualify themselves as real Brahmins for preaching the teachings of Bhagavad Gita for all practical purposes throughout the world. Prabhupada never thought small, right? Throughout the world. Deserving candidates will be provided with free boarding and lodging. Apply A.C. Bhaktivedanta, founder and secretary of the League of Devotees. Bharati Bhawan P.O. Jhansi. Years later, Harishari Prabhu said he found amongst Prabhupada's personal papers that were still sort of left over in his rooms at the Radha Damodar temple. He found some League of Devotees papers, and he brought them to Prabhupada. He said, what was this League of Devotees, Prabhupada? You had some kind of organization before ISKCON? And so Prabhupada laughed. He said, oh, the League of Devotees, that was just me. I was trying to start something. Nothing really happened. But he really tried, and here's a look at what was going on here. So the following May, this is May 53 now, Prabhupada formally launched the League. So this is from the Lilamrita. On May 16, 1953, Abai held a grand opening celebration for the League of Devotees, with continuous readings, kirtan, and prasadam distribution from early morning until night. The buildings were decorated with leaves, flowers, and many earthen water pots. In the evening, when attendance was the greatest, Abai lectured from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita on Raja Guhya Yoga. We know it as the most confidential knowledge. Prabhakar Mishra conducted a fire sacrifice, and several Brahmins chanted mantras from the Brahma Samhita. Guests received a 16-page prospectus containing Abai's essay on the need for the League and an excerpt from the charter explaining its goals. It was signed, Om Tat Sat, Abhay Charnaravindo, Bhaktivedanta, founder and secretary. And now here's an excerpt from the prospectus, and it reads like a first draft of the first purpose of ISKCON. So Prabhu, why don't you read this?
Systematically for checking the imbalance of life to the whole race of India and the world over, with a view to educate the people in general in the techniques of spiritual life.
Now, next lesson, this afternoon, we're going to read the purposes of ISKCON, and this is an echo, a perfect echo of that first purpose. So Prabhupada, he's articulating, he's expressing, he's thinking through the purpose of his mission here. The League's land and buildings, originally a gift promise, turned into a purchase offer, then the center of an intrigue involving a Mahila Samiti Sangha, a ladies' upliftment society. Supported by the governor's wife, the group put political pressure on the estate's executor to sell to them or lose his business license. The governor's wife, the governor was Mr. K. Munshi, so Lilavati Munshi, his wife, got a hold of this executor fellow who was holding the property that he was letting Prabhupada use. And he said, you know, if you don't sell to us, Baba, you won't be able to renew your business license, because the guy was making his money off cinema houses in Jhansi. That's how he was getting his income. So he got scared. The governor's wife asked Prabhupada to vacate the premises to allow their Sangha to purchase the estate. She wrote a letter to Prabhupada. Swamiji, you're trying to do this League of Devotees, but you're not having much success, so just please vacate the premises and let us help the downtrodden ladies of India. So, determined to make a headquarters for worldwide preaching, Prabhupada decided to consult Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, his old godbrother friend, for consultation. So, yeah, and so he came from Mathura, from the Keshavji Gaudiya Math, and he surveyed the scene, Keshav Maharaj. Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj advised Prabhupada that fairly remote Jhansi was not worth a legal fight, and that the Lord had greater plans for him. Prabhupada eventually left Jhansi and went with Keshav Maharaj to Mathura. In the next slide, we'll see how the Lord was also moving Prabhupada on in his ashram status. That's around 1954, 1955 now. During his Jhansi years, on a trip home to Calcutta to raise funds for the League of Devotees, an incident involving Prabhupada and his wife spelled the end of his householder life. Here's how Prabhupada told the story. I wanted as much as possible to get my wife to work with me in spreading Krishna consciousness, to get her help. But she was very determined. She would not help me spread Krishna consciousness. And she was very attached to drinking British tea. I was always telling her not to drink that caffeine tea, because I wanted to have a nice Vaishnav family. So although I was repeatedly telling her, this time I finally said, now you have to choose between me or tea. Either the tea goes or I go. So she replied, well, give up drinking tea or give up my husband? Well, I will have to give up my husband then. Of course, she thought I was joking. So, Mataji, I want you to read this. We've got to get a lady to read this.
While Abai was out, his wife took his worshipable Bhagavatam to the market and traded it for tea biscuits. At first he felt depressed, but then a wave of absolute resolution passed over him. His family life was finished.
That was the last straw. The last straw. When she did that, I mean, can you imagine? She's purposely maintaining her tea habit, practically just to spite him, because she she was mad. She was mad that her husband was so involved with the mission and wasn't, and was, ignoring her needs for just some privacy. So she could have taken, the system was, you take something of weight and of value to go to the shop and you put it on the scale and they give you equal weight what you want. So she must have got a lot of tea biscuits for that book, because books are heavy. But, his Bhagavatam, did it have to be his Bhagavatam? But she did that. So Prabhupada saw that, and that was it. Prabhupada told us, even one of our daughters wasn't married yet. She was all of 16 years old, right? I think it was Subbalakshmi, one of them. And Prabhupada had tried to make an arrangement for her to get married, which the family didn't accept. But when his wife did this, Prabhupada said, I thought, enough is enough. God will take care. As we like to say, I'm out of here, right? He turned on his heels, and they thought, oh, he'll be back. He's always coming and going with his, traveling salesman stuff. He never came back. Never came back. You know where he went? He went to South Calcutta to a mutt, a little mutt that one of his godbrothers had. His name was Paramahansa Maharaj. And Paramahansa Maharaj told our research team, yeah, Bhai Babu, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, he came to my mutt, and for 2 weeks, he just paced the mutt. And he was chanting at the top of his lungs, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He was releasing 36 years of Grihastha life. 1918 to 1954, finished. So it was quite a dramatic time. With family life behind him, Srila Prabhupada was now free to develop his mission. But after he dropped Jhansi, he tried to revive BTG in Delhi, but found little interest in spiritual revolution among his materially ambitious countrymen. Living in near poverty, Prabhupada had little choice but to try to work with his godbrothers in the mutts of the fragmented Gaudiya mission. Since Srila Prabhupada's householder days, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had been coming to him in dreams, inviting him to take sannyas and increase his preaching. But when he approached some sannyasi godbrothers about awarding him sannyas, the response was cool. Not cool in the good sense, like we say that's cool, but cool in the distant sense. The response was cool until he met his old friend, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. There's Keshav Maharaj. Looking uncannily like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to me. There's quite a resemblance there. And on September 17th, 1959, and we have a photo because it was publicized. There was somebody there from Amrita Bazar Patrika taking photos. So on September 17th, 1959, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu became A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, and another fellow became Bhaktivedanta Muni Maharaj. He was like 90 something. He was basically taking sannyas to leave the world. Prabhupada was taking sannyas to go into the world, to preach. He was openly saying, I'm going to the West. He didn't know how, he didn't know when he would do it, but he was determined. He was through with family life, and he wanted to deepen his commitment to his spiritual master's mission. So he took sannyas because the spiritual master was coming to him since the 1940s. If you've heard the recordings, Prabhupada saying, so my Guru Maharaj was coming to me and saying, please come out, take sannyas. And Prabhupada Prabhupada told us, I was horrified. I was horrified. I didn't see how I could live like my sannyasi godbrothers, so austerely, so simply, because he was in household life for many, many years. But now the time was right. Now the family life was finished, and you see how determined and staunch Prabhupada looks there, huh? And at his sannyas initiation, his dear godbrother, Akinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, who, when he was in Babaji, when we knew him, he would always visit Prabhupada in Vrindavan, and he was always playing the drum, and he was always smiling and laughing, and whenever anybody asked him a question, Babaji Maharaj would say, Hare Krishna. That was the answer to everything, right? So, Babaji Maharaj, he was at Prabhupada's sannyas initiation. So, and he was chanting. He was leading the bhajans. But sometimes the chanting would get so loud, it appeared to, obscure the ceremonial chanting of the mantras and also the lecture. I think it was Bhaktivedanta, Narayan Maharaj, who, was doing the sacrifice actually. The whole thing was overseen by Keshav Maharaj. And I believe it was Narayan Maharaj who was telling Babaji Maharaj to keep it down. He was keep the chanting volume down. But Babaji Maharaj said every time he was told to keep it down, he would see our Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami, go like this. Turn it up, turn up the volume. And Babaji Maharaj said, it was then that I knew he was going to do his mission, spread Harinam all over the world, because he had absolute faith in the holy names of the Lord, and he wanted more Hare Krishna chanting. So this was September 59. Now, 9 years later, after Prabhupada started ISKCON, the Hare Krishna movement, Prabhupada was in Seattle, and, a little premature there. He was in Seattle, and he was preaching in Seattle. I mean, I don't know why, he stayed quite a few weeks. There wasn't much going on in Seattle then. Although there was a World Fair, maybe it was that, I'm not sure. But while he's in Seattle, he got word that his sannyas guru, Keshav Maharaj, had just passed away. And so there's a very touching recording of Prabhupada telling the devotees this. And he's very emotional, actually, recalling his whole sannyas initiation. And at the end of the eulogy, he calls all the devotees up. Well, I don't know how many there were, but you hear them signing a letter of condolence to be sent to Keshavji Gaudiya Math. And then you can hear Prabhupada signing. Because when Prabhupada signed his name, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, that big kind of royal signature, there was never a break. You know how we sign our names and there might be a break, first name, middle, and last. But you can hear Prabhupada's grand strokes on the page, right by the microphone. So here we're going to have a little excerpt from the eulogy. And when you hear Prabhupada speaking, you're going to hear how emotional it is, but also you're going to look at the content of what he's saying and hear him say it. And you're going to maybe wonder why he would say a couple of things in there. Prabhupada says in here a couple of things that he wouldn't ordinarily say. So let's hear Prabhupada speak.
I was sitting alone in Vrindavan, writing my god brother. He insisted me, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. Not he insisted me, practically my spiritual master insisted me, through him, that you accept. Because without accepting the renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher. So unwillingly I accept.
So, You notice anything in there that Prabhupada would not ordinarily say? Anything strike you as odd? Prabhu?
Like unwillingly he accepts.
Yeah, that's one. He was already going around to his sannyasi godbrothers asking them to award him sannyas. So why did he say unwillingly? Because he wants to glorify his Guru Maharaj and his sannyas guru for pulling him out of material life. Because when you take sannyas, traditionally you're considered civilly dead. You no longer have any secular identity. You've totally renounced the world. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing?
Without accepting the renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher.
Is that what Prabhupada told us? No. You can preach in any order of life, any stage of life, any varna, any ashram. But again, he's giving them, there's another talk where you hear Prabhupada, he's very emotionally saying, my Guru Maharaj pulled me out, you know, of rotten material life. So this is a good example of how, you know, when you hear Prabhupada or you read Prabhupada, you got to know the context, or else you're going to be driven mad by all the apparent contradictions. Prabhupada says 360 degrees, he says different things on the same topic. So you got to know why he's saying what he's saying, when he's saying it, to whom he's saying it, and then you'll understand him. Okay, so he took sannyas, and then after Prabhupada took sannyas in 1959, two friends suggested he write books instead of his BTG magazine. He had a friend who was an army captain, and he had a friend who was a librarian, and they both said the same thing to him. They suggested he write books because people too easily throw away magazines, but books are something are more substantial. They don't so easily discard those. Srila Prabhupada took it that his spiritual master was speaking through them. If he were to fulfill Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's order to preach in the West, he would need substantial books, as Bhaktisiddhanta had insisted when he sent his sannyasi preachers to Europe in the 1930s. Remember the Sri Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya by Professor Sanyal. He wouldn't let those preachers go to Europe unless they had that substantial book. He thus conceived of translating and purporting Srimad Bhagavatam. But before the Bhagavatam, in 1960, Prabhupada serialized his first book, Easy Journey to Other Planets, in BTG, then published it as a small book with positive scientific reviews. With positive scientific reviews. Where am I? Oh yeah. At the same time, Srila Prabhupada began his English translation with elaborate commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, quote, the cream of Vedic literature. At the invitation of Gorachand Goswami, who was the head of the Radha Damodar temple, Prabhupada moved from Delhi to Vrindavan's Radha Damodar temple. Taking inspiration from his Guru Maharaj and the 6 Goswamis, Prabhupada began preparing the spiritual literature he would take with him to preach in the West. Harishari Prabhu tells the story that he heard through the grapevine that while Prabhupada was at Radha Damodar, he had a visitation from Srila Rupa Goswami. And Rupa Goswami actually came to him to encourage him that he could do this translating. So Harishari said he heard this when he first came on Prabhupada's party as the servant. But he knew that he couldn't just pop that question to Prabhupada because it's a very kind of intimate question. So he was thinking in his mind, I've got to wait till Prabhupada's in a mood where he's talking about India, you know, before he came to the West. So sure enough, one day at Bhaktivedanta Manor, Prabhupada was in a very relaxed reminiscing mood and talking about the Radha Damodar days. And so at the right moment, Hari Shauri said, Srila Prabhupada, I heard that while you were at Radha Damodar, that Srila Rupa Goswami actually visited you. And as soon as he said that, Prabhupada's mood changed. Prabhupada had been very relaxed, in a very talkative, expansive mood, and then all of a sudden he became very withdrawn and quiet. And all Prabhupada said was, oh, everyone knows that. He didn't deny it, and he didn't want to talk about it either. So, yeah, very amazing. Now, there's the kind of typewriter Prabhupada used. This is a real Hunt and Peck, not touch type, but Hunt and Peck Corona, even before Corona merged with Smith. This is a real ancient typewriter. So this is the kind of typewriter where when you're typing, you've got to mash the keys with your finger, right? So this is the kind of typewriter Prabhupada used. And now we're going to take a look at an excerpt from Prabhupada's Indian Bhagavatam in his purport to Bhagavatam 1.5.11, where Prabhupada, 1.5.10 and 1.5.11, they kind of go together. It's the part where Narada Muni is encouraging Vyasadeva to write the Bhagavatam, and that's why he's morose or feeling unfulfilled, because he hasn't directly glorified Krishna. He's compiled all the Vedic literatures, and including Vedanta Sutra, but Narada is saying, this is Vayasam Tirtha, this is a pilgrimage place for crows. This is including Vedanta Sutra. You haven't glorified Krishna. And then the next verse, 1.5.11, is the famous Tadvag Visargo, but literature which directly glorifies Krishna. This can bring about a spiritual revolution in the hearts and the minds of the people. And it can correct the imbalance of values in a misdirected civilization. So in his purport to that verse, Prabhupada makes an appeal to the Western reader to overlook his Indian English. So let's see. Mataji, you want to read this? Whoop.
His Bhagavatam blossoms. Our capacity of presenting the matter in adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail, and there may be so many literature discrepancies in spite of our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with our all faults in this connection...
Okay, you read it the way Prabhupada wrote it, with our all faults. That's not correct English, but that's Prabhupada's English. And right in the appeal, he's doing Indian English. With our all faults in this connection,
the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of the society will still accept this on account of its being an honest attempt for glorifying the Almighty Great, so much now badly needed.
Doing everything himself, writing, editing, buying paper, proofreading the galleys, Prabhupada labored intensively to publish Srimad Bhagavatam's first canto in 3 volumes. Okay. With all 3 volumes published by 1964, the stage was set for Prabhupada to execute his mission. There's Prabhupada gifting the second Prime Minister of India, Shastri, with the Bhagavatams at the government house in India. And he's openly saying, I'm going to the West. More and more, he's saying it. He didn't know how, he didn't know when, but he was determined. Once he had a sponsor in the U.S., 1965, Gopal Agarwal met Prabhupada and secured him a sponsorship with his son in Butler, Pennsylvania. Prabhupada still had to satisfy many officials to receive the required documents to leave India and enter America. With no money to pay for the trip, Srila Prabhupada convinced pious shipping magnate Sumati Morarji to sponsor his passage. You know how Prabhupada knew Morarji? When he was in Bombay in the 30s. He was giving talks at the Bombay Gaudiya Math, and she sometimes would attend. And she was impressed with his knowledge of the Shastra. Here is Srila Prabhupada recalling his dream. So she eventually gave him passage, although she didn't want to, because she thought he would die on his ship, and she almost did. Here is Prabhupada recalling his dream to preach in America. Now this is much later. This is 76, a morning walk in Mayapur.
I planned that I must go to America. Generally they go to London. I did not go to London. I was simply dreaming how to go to New York. I was dreaming whether I shall go this way through Tokyo, Japan, or that way, which way is cheaper. And I was targeting to New York, always. Sometimes I was dreaming that I come to New York.
Prabhupada was always up to date. The Gaudiya Math sannyasis were sent to London. Prabhupada was doing BTG. He knew what was going on in the world. He knew the action had shifted from Europe to New York. He was exactly right. Krishna gave him that buddhi, the Dhammi Buddhi Yogam Tam, to come to New York, where the counterculture was just in its embryonic stage. Okay, now here's how we end the lesson. We end the lesson with a beautiful song that my god sister Jamini Devi wrote about Prabhupada crossing the Atlantic. It's a music video, it's a couple of minutes, and it's very stunning. Here we go. Her name is Joy Fry. She's a musician. She's married to Mangalananda. You know Mangalananda? He's a god brother. They make music together. Although, right now, I just received word not long ago that she's in a hospice situation. She may leave her body soon. I hope she doesn't, but she's such a sweet devotee. But anyway, check this song out. I think she made this version for the 50th anniversary of Prabhupada leaving Calcutta on the Jaladuta. It's a very nice music video. Here we go.
Prabhupada boarded the Jaladuta today. He's heading to the west without delay. His books are in their trunks just like gold. He carries a message to and home. His teacher wanted Prabhupada to go to the places where people did not know. That the God we all pray to is the same, and Krishna is his original name. Winds on the water of Atlantic, please bring him here so his message of service can spring anew, leading as the morning dew. The absolute dissension has proven long ago. Life comes from life, it has always been so. Impersonal deception is the only veil, puts a soul on calamity's trail. Winds on the water of Atlantic, please bring him here. When the clouds that carry illusions flight are scattered from his words of light. Prabhupada boarded the Jaladuta today. A heart attack will come along the way, but Krishna will know just what to do, becoming a special rowing crew.
see, the ending is great. Should we see it again? Let's do it. Okay. All cyber gods, please cooperate. Oops. Oh, that's the end.
His books are in their trunks, just like gold. He carries a message true and bold. His teacher wanted Prabhupada to go to the places where people did not know that the God we all pray to is the same, and Krishna is his original name. Rolls on the water of Atlantic.
This is my favorite lesson because of this ending. And I so much wanted you to see this, but yeah, it's a shame. Huh? All right, we'll go back. They say three's a charm, right? You mean hear it from my? Yeah, I mean, we have to unplug the thing. Okay, is there some way you can stop it from doing that? It seems, anyway. Well, there's something wrong with this. Anyway, Hare Krishna. Because I wanted to play it again this afternoon for Maharaj, because he has never seen this. Yeah? Okay. Yeah, we didn't have this problem yesterday. Okay, so we're going to go back. All right? We're going to hear the whole thing. We'll give it one more shot.
Prabhupada boarded the Jaladuta today. He's heading to the west without delay. His books are in their trunks, just like gold. He carries a message true and bold. His teacher wanted Prabhupada to go to the places where people did not know
Jai. Okay. Whoop. Oh. Hey, we made it. Just made it, huh? Okay, now we need... What's going on? It's not coming back. All right. Huh? There it is. Oh, okay. Okay. Transition. In the next lesson, we'll begin by hearing, seeing, and reflecting on Srila Prabhupada's mood and as his mood as expressed in the poem he wrote upon arriving in America. Markine Bhagavad Dharma. So the ship, he left on Friday the 13th, August, and he came into Boston Harbor at 5:30 a.m., the very time his Guru Maharaj left this world. On September 17th, a 35-day journey. You know, when that ship, it made it through Gibraltar, out of the Mediterranean into the Atlantic, that's where usually it's really problematic because of all the ferocious Atlantic waves. But when that ship emerged from Gibraltar, the Atlantic became like a lake, like a glassy, calm lake. And the captain, Captain Pandya, said, "Swamiji, we've never seen the Atlantic like this. Would you please come back with us on the return voyage?" Because they were convinced this sadhu was responsible. And of course, Krishna did not want another heart attack at that time. He sent another heart attack later. So on the ship, Prabhupada wrote a poem. And it was called Markine Bhagavad Dharma in Bengali. So when we start the lesson this afternoon, we're going to start with the music, a moving slideshow in a different format. It's not PowerPoint. And it's the poem being sung in Bengali by my godbrother Jai Sachinandan. And we're going to see highlights of Prabhupada's preaching Leela. And this multimedia 11-minute video was put together by a person who never met Prabhupada. He was a UK Pandava Sain, second generation, as a Vyasa Puja offering for Prabhupada at the Manor in 2009. Okay, so it's really way over, huh? Anyway, the lesson outcomes, we should be able to identify the seeding and sprouting of Prabhupada's mission's creeper. We should be able to recount 3 major blessings Prabhupada received from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in 1935, recount early manifestations of Prabhupada's mission in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, and finally we should be able to describe Prabhupada's sea voyage to the West. So we're late, but if you want to ask some questions, we do have until 2:30 to reconvene. Any questions about his mission's roots? Prabhu, you got the mic? Well, wait a minute. I can hear you, but they can't necessarily. Where's the mic? Where'd it go? Oh, there you go. It's more for everybody.
Hare Krishna. So, Prabhu, we often hear that even a brief association with a pure devotee is enough to transform the life of a non-devotee or a living entity. This question often comes in my mind, that why Prabhupada, couldn't change, or why the life of the family members of Prabhupada didn't change with his association.
Okay, you hear the question? If only a moment's association with a pure devotee, right, lava matra sadhu sange sarva siddhi hoy, can change a life, then why Prabhupada's own family members of all people did become pure devotees fired up about the mission? These are all the arrangements of Krishna. Hari Shari Prabhu has a theory about this. It's very interesting. His theory was, can you imagine if Prabhupada's family members actually became Krishna conscious. I mean, really fired up, practicing Krishna conscious. And then when Prabhupada passed away, what may have happened when Prabhupada passed away? His family members might have claimed ISKCON's assets as their own because, after all, ISKCON was Prabhupada's. Now, and this actually happened. Now, thank you, Maharaj. Before Prabhupada passed away, Prabhupada told my godbrother Shadadanya, if you ever have trouble from the family, here is the name, address, and number of a family friend who's sympathetic with my mission, who also is an intimate associate of the family. He was an attorney in Calcutta. So sure enough, in the early 80s, there was trouble from the family. Radharani Dey, Prabhupada's wife, had given power of attorney to her son, Mathura Mohan, to make a court case to try to claim ISKCON's assets as their own. Because when Prabhupada left the family in 1954-55, and he didn't come back, they really resented it. She really resented it especially, even though she had grown children by that time. They really struggled, actually. But you weren't here at the time, Maharaj, but we did the whole tea or me thing, and Prabhupada leaving. So, in the early 80s, Radharani Dey was still alive, you know, some years after Prabhupada passed away in 77. So she let her son, who, Mathura Mohan, he became like a real, he became a communist, what to speak of not a pure devotee. And he thought he could convince the courts that that Prabhupada's sannyas was illegitimate, and that really the whole thing that he started really should be awarded to them as the family members. So when this happened, then Shadadanya remembered, and he had the record. He had the record of this person to consult of what to do if this ever happens. Shadadanya goes to Calcutta, finds the person, tells him what's going on, told him what Prabhupada told him, that he'll help you. And he was very helpful. He took Shadadanya to where Radharani Dey was still living. She was still living in North Calcutta. And he was the translator for Shadadanya to Radharani, because he was very fluent in Bengali and English, this family friend. So he conveyed to Radharani Dey what Shadadanya was saying. And here's what Shadadanya said to Prabhupada's former wife. Well, first of all, he asked her to rescind the power of attorney, because Mathura Mohan was just speaking all crazy stuff. Everybody knew in Calcutta, including the judge, that Prabhupada had taken sannyas. It was written up in the paper, as we saw in the slide. This was an authentic sannyas ceremony from Keshav Maharaj. So he was asking Radharani Dey, through the interpreter friend, translator friend, to rescind the power of attorney and not let her son make all these claims in the court. So when that was conveyed to Radharani Dey started venting 30 years of her resentment that her husband had left the family and left them in very weak financial straits. So Shadadanya was hearing all this, this 30 years of resentment outpouring from Radharani. So then Shadadanya says, so then after she had unloaded and didn't have any more to say, I felt Prabhupada's empowerment. I felt Prabhupada speaking through me. And he just began to say in a very heartfelt way, Mataji, yes, your husband left the family after 36 years in the Grihastha ashram. He left that family, but he made the whole world his family. She wasn't even aware. She didn't want to be aware. She didn't really know what ISKCON was. And he saved me, Mataji. And he saved so many around the world. He changed the face of spiritual history in the world. And he made the whole world his family. And as he was speaking this, he could see Radharani changing, recognizing that actually Prabhupada was a Mahatma. He was a great soul. And that she had been holding this resentment in her for so long. But her heart was changing. And he could see in her eyes, realizing who her husband was. And she agreed to rescind the power of attorney. My godbrother, Shadadanya Prabhu, has the unique distinction of being the only person to ever preach to Prabhupada's wife. Can you imagine that? Wow. Now, Hari Shari says, can you imagine if somehow they had prevailed, if they had been good people and not, you know, just resentful materialists, basically, that they might have made a claim that somehow might have stood up because they were good devotees, whatever. So Hari Shari is of the opinion, and you know, he is also an intimate associate of Prabhupada. We see what he's done for the whole world with his diaries, giving us an intimate glimpse of what it was like to be so close to Prabhupada. He's given his opinion of why Krishna did that. And this is not uncommon, actually. You know, somebody becomes a devotee and the rest of the family resents it. You know, it happened in the case of Raghunath Das Goswami's life. Anyway, and in the life of so many devotees. So just because a family member is a pure devotee, look at Hiranyakashipu. Krishna says in the Gita, among the Daitya demons, I am the devoted Prahlad. Of all those who were enemies of Krishna, I am the jewel within that family. 21 generations, Lord Nrsimhadev said to Prahlad, who said, please just save my father. That's the only benediction I want. I'm not a vanik, I'm not a merchant, I'm not doing business with you, Lord. Just save my demoniac father. 21 generations, Prabhupada said in the purport. He's already saved, so many generations. So everybody has free will, and Krishna won't interfere with that. But we see it as, I think Hari Shari is right, that Krishna protected ISKCON in that way too. Prabhupada was always trying to protect ISKCON, even from his own godbrothers. But to speak of outside forces. So that was just an arrangement the Lord made, so that the mission would go on unimpeded by the family, who were never helpful in the mission. Maharaj, you gotta...
Just a fill-in question. Who was that person who Satyadanya...
Oh, the person. I'll have to ask Shadadanya. I don't know. He didn't tell me, I think, when he told me the story.
Prabhupada knew he could do it.
Prabhupada must have known he could do it. Yeah. Shadadanya is good with PR, public relations. He's good like that. He's good arranging with officials and... Yeah, Prabhupada knew that. That's good point. Okay, so you missed... were you here when we were doing the music video with Jamini? Okay, so we're going to start the lesson. Before we do the music video to transition to the lesson 5, we're going to do that music just for Maharaj. So at 2:30, we're going to... You got to see Jamini's, 2015 version of the song. While she's still with us on earth, I'm praying to Krishna that he can keep her. She's such a dear devotee. And she told me, I sing this song every day. She told me that. Because she passed through Tucson, where I'm based. She and Mangalananda were on their way to California to do they do music gigs all over on the West Coast for the winter. And then she got really gravely ill. And the latest I heard, she was in San Diego in a hospice kind of situation. So I said, oh, you must come back to Tucson to sing that. We want to hear you sing it live. So she said, oh, yes, I will. And anyway, I sing it every day. I always sing it live every day. Okay, it's really late, but please, let's reconvene in 95 minutes. Don't eat too much so you don't fall asleep. And I'll do the same. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.